But just because the TV thinks you're hot shit, that don't make it so. Look, you are in my little pond now.
It's interesting. I haven't seen this film myself in 10 years, and I look at every cut and every angle and the ideas I had when I was shooting this. You saw a wide shot there in front of the Carmine character where you see this plane on the desk and he's sort of very powerful looking in this low wide angle shot. That's what we do when we try to sort of subliminally affect the audience and make them feel in certain ways. You use long lens close-ups sometimes to make your hero look very good, like you see right there. The background falls very soft and the hero looks very sharp and strong. And then sometimes you use just a very wide long angle shot like I did with him, with Dennis Franz, just to give his surroundings a real sense of power. The interior of this police station was shot actually in downtown Los Angeles. And we shot it with orange filters in the windows in order to create this kind of a sunset feeling. And I wanted to have the background of the skyscrapers there. And again, you would think that it would be much easier to shoot on stage and just put those backgrounds in later on, and that's probably what we would do today. But in those days, we felt that we would save some money by going to the real location and seeing the real background there, and not using rear projection or translights. Translights are photographs of the scenery outside the window that are blown into huge proportions and lit from behind, so that they are like giant slides of the background. But here I could actually get some traffic movement and a very, very real feeling of the city behind. And here is the sequence where we are using the walkway, and Bruce is able to start it and this way get the gun. Again, the classic example of bad guy, good guy, loses the gun, gets the gun back, and is able to take care of business. These kind of sequences take a lot of work. In the movie, it might be only a few minutes, and it might seem like a simple thing, but you have to remember that every single angle, every character shooting their guns, every character getting hit, falling off something, getting crushed by something, it all has to be shot separately, usually with several cameras, so that you get different angles. As in here, you blow up all these windows. You want to keep the actors safe and shielded, and cover the action in a most effective way, and do it safely. And here we are on stage. We have a miniature set outside the windows, some fires, some lights, and just piecing it all together. It's very tedious, very slow. The safety issues are very, very important, and it takes quite a number of days to create this illusion. Helicopters are always tricky. They are the staple of action movies, and I like using them. But they are tricky to use. They are dangerous. They take extreme caution. Same thing, of course, with airplanes. They are slow to maneuver. For every retake, it's a big deal to move them back to the start positions. So it takes a lot of planning, a lot of safety. You have to have the best people to work with, so that they know exactly what to do with these aircrafts, to keep the crew and the cast always safe, and at the same time get some really effective scenes shot that way. The hardest thing that I find in directing actors and putting together scenes that have lots of characters is usually in the casting of the smaller parts. It's not so hard to cast people who have bigger parts and lots of lines in the movie, but to find real people who will and good actors who will come in and do just a handful of lines in a scene like this, it's the hardest thing. You really end up going through tens, if not hundreds, of actors, because it's hard to imagine, but just saying a few lines and make it absolutely real, make it seem like these people belong there. They are real professionals. They look real. it usually takes a lot of time to find somebody like that and put together a group of people who will work well together and give the scene a real sense of reality. One actor in a scene like that who doesn't sound real and somehow doesn't gel with the other group can really, really slow down the entire process and make something that should seem quite simple compared to all these complicated and very choreographed action sequences, can really turn out to be a big headache. I like using a lot of moving camera and motivated by the action, and in this film I used quite a lot of Steadicam, which is a camera rig where the camera is attached to a rig that the operator is carrying, and the camera stays very balanced despite the movements, and you can move in on the actors like you see here on Bruce, or you can follow them or circle around them, or create other dynamic type of moves that fit the action. And also I like using cranes. There are all kinds of different type of cranes, small cranes, really huge long cranes, and techno cranes, which are cranes that telescope in and out, and you can get into very tricky sets and move around them, and this way keep this type of a dynamic feel to the scenes. It's the greatest reward for the filmmaker when you put together a scene and when you have the climax and the release of the scene, the audience applauds, and that's what I experience with audiences in many theaters where I went to look at the movie, and it is sometimes doing an action scene is kind of like telling a joke. You set it up, you set the stage, the stakes, you tell the story, and you take it to the climax, and then you give the punchline. And if the joke works, the audience laughs, and in an action movie, if the action sequence works, it usually gives the audience a great release, and they, in a crowded theater, they either scream or they applaud or they laugh, but you know that you've told the joke in the right way if you get this reaction. This fight scene again, it was done on the Fox lot. It's all fake snow, and the icicle is made out of fiberglass. But these type of things, they are so hard to do as it is, that to be on location in freezing conditions or melting conditions, with all the lights, with the whole crew, with all the equipment, it's just not practical. So you always, when you're doing something more limited and smaller like that, you want to do it in controlled conditions. And then when you do bigger shots like these here with the church, then you are back on stage. It takes a lot of work from a lot of people, key being your script supervisor, whose job is to make sure that everybody's scars are in the right place, their bandages are in the right place, their jackets are buttoned the same way, their weapons are on the same arm, and in general things look similar to what you shot on location, because sometimes you are shooting the tighter work months later on stage, and you have to make it match perfectly what you've done before. And a lot of this thing I wanted to find ways of shooting and showing a chase in a different way that people hadn't necessarily seen. Again, interesting thing is that a lot of this tight work, actually probably all of it with Bruce, we did on stage in Los Angeles in very warm temperatures on a stage that was chilled and made very cold, and therefore looked kind of threatening and cold, and you could see the breath of the actors.
Check out your own fucking plane.
We move out in 5 minutes. Flak jackets for everybody. Body armor for the assault team. Night scopes for the snipers.
I remember this big crane shot. It took quite a while to set up with a bunch of police cars and a bunch of extras, and it's fairly quick and looks quite simple in the film. But those are the things that when you start with an empty canvas of just some fake snow outside the church, and you start positioning the cars and lights and different people and the camera gear and so on. Sometimes it can really eat up your day. And in the early days, I sometimes would go for that kind of a shot as the first shot of the day, and it could take several hours to set up, and you would really eat into your shooting time. And I soon learned that the more practical way was really to do it so that you shoot all your dialogue scenes and all your close-ups and all your fairly normal coverage of the scene in the beginning of the day, and then you save for the end of the day, you save the most complicated shot. Of course, there, on the other hand, the danger is that you never get to the complicated shot because your day goes by anyhow. So it's always a trade-off, and my motto has been that I have to do one really good shot a day, because a lot of the shots are normal, like you see in this scene. You cut back and forth of the characters, you have a close-up, you have a group shot, you have a two-shot. Those are fairly normal shots. But to do a really interesting shot once a day, when you have an 80-day shooting schedule, you'll end up with 80 interesting shots. And if the movie is 100 minutes long, you pretty much every minute you'll have something a little more interesting and spectacular for the audience to see, and that's what it's all about. It's motion pictures, so you want to give the audience hopefully the most effective way of seeing things, and not necessarily place the camera always in the most typical place. Sometimes it's easier said than done, because the pressures of the schedule and the circumstances are always there, and you plan every day, you storyboard the day, you make your shot list, you plan the scenes that you have to shoot, and that's what you have to do. And there's very little margin for error.